All right, everyone. Good morning. We've reached Thursday and we're getting towards the weekend. It's me and Ryan with you today. Ryan, how are you?
Things are good, yeah. One day closer until the real football is back. I feel like this has been such a long international break. I don't know about you, Hamish. It's absolutely dragging in. 2 more days until the real stuff is back. I can't wait. Can't wait to be getting to Tynecastle on Saturday night. Big game under the floodlights. Yeah, just really looking forward to getting things back on track because once Celtic are back, then they'll be back until March time. So exciting times, but just looking forward to getting back to it really and getting back to the grind.
Definitely. Morning, everyone. How are you? Give us a shout and let us know. Morning to Hazel and Martin, who's just firing names out at us. Bogut's. He's saying Matthias Bogut's. Will that name resurface? We're starting to hear a bit of transfer stuff. P. McLaughlin talking about Brownhill. You just mentioned him a minute ago, Ryan, didn't you? Who's it? Is this fella from Burnley?
28-year-old central midfielder from Burnley. He's been there for a couple of years now. Yeah, he's on the last year of his deal, and that's the sort of link that's been coming out yesterday that Celtic are interested in maybe bringing him in on a pre-contract ahead of the summer. For me, I would want Celtic to be going for younger midfielders now. I know that it's always important to get that mix of maybe players in their prime and young players to help supplement that. But I feel like they've already got that in the midfield with the likes of McGregor being a wee bit older. Then they've got Bernardo, Engels, Hatate. Unless it was like a like for like replacement for Hatate, somebody a bit older. But I just think the age makes it a bit of a non-starter for me. I don't see why Celtic would splash the cash or splash wages on a 28-year-old when I think there's younger options out there that will make Celtic money in the long run. I don't think it goes with Celtic's transfer policy or transfer targets. They're usually in for younger players, develop them, and then sell them on for a fee. I don't think there's any resale value in this sort of player, despite him being, by all accounts, a good player. Vincent Kompany in the last season, called him a really important player for Burnley. But yeah, it's one of those ones that I don't mind experience in the midfield, especially if they're going to come in and play 40, 50 games. But who is that at the expense of? Is it the expense of Paulo Bernardo getting more game time? Because for me, if it was between bringing in a new midfielder or giving Bernardo more game time, I would pick the latter because I want to see him improve. And I see what he's bringing already to the team coming off the bench. And I'm like, you could probably do that starting games or starting most games. I was saying yesterday, in any other era, Paulo Bernardo would be starting most games for Celtic.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate that the midfield is so good at this moment in time. The likes of Engels, Hatate, McGregor, even Luke McCowan can't really get solid game time because of the strength and depth that Celtic have got. So you bring another midfielder into there. Who's leaving? Who's going? Who's going to lose that game time? It's an interesting one. It's not the position that I thought that Celtic would look to strengthen in January, but it's one of those ones we're going to need to wait and see what goes on.
So this was January. Sorry, it's not next summer that they're talking about.
Pre-contract, he's out of contract in the summer,
Okay.
so it would be bringing him in. I don't know if there'd be a fee involved. I know that he's playing a lot of games for Burnley in the Championship this season. I think he's already got 5 goals in the Championship, so he's a bit of a goal-scoring midfielder, although you could say that, and then people could look to Callum McGregor being a goal-scoring midfielder, and it's a really purple patch, a really big purple patch that he's on at the moment. But central midfielder, can play in defensive midfield, but he's very central. It looks a good player by all accounts, but he's 28 years old. I don't know how it fits into Celtic's model, if I'm being honest, unless this is what the new head of sporting or the head of football operations is looking at, potential free transfers down south that can help strengthen the team. Paul Tisdale might be looking at that.
Interesting one. It's probably an interesting point to have a wee discussion about our midfield, potentially where we see it going, because there was reports about Lennon Miller last night as well. Celtic had scouted Lennon Miller playing for Scotland's 19s, I want to say.
It might be under 21s now that he's playing for.
I think it was 19s, but when I say that, I think it should be the 21s. They were playing France in Falkirk, 0-0 draw at the start of the week, and we went and scouted them. But we weren't alone in scouting them. I think a number of teams down south, like Liverpool, Man United, Aston Villa, Manchester City, all sent representatives to watch Lennon Miller. So it is interesting, and we've spoken about this previously, but the Celtic midfield is really strong at the moment. At the moment, I don't know if there's necessarily room for another player. I certainly think there's other positions that are in need of reinforcement before we get to midfield. This is the strongest midfield I can remember seeing at Celtic for a number of years. And you look at them and you don't see too many of them who could leave soon. I think Luke McCowan will be here for a few years. He'll probably do a Johnny Hayes stint, whatever that was, 3 or 4 years. And we'll probably love Luke McCowan and really remember him fondly, as much as it's early days. Callum McGregor's obviously here until the end. I think Engels has got a couple of years, and you see him rise and rise. And I think Paulo Bernardo's the same. So it's quite a long-term midfield, the way I'm looking at it, or certainly long-term in terms of usual Celtic chat. Hatate is the one I think we've spoken about that potentially could be moving on. So if Hatate was to move on, it would potentially open up room for someone like Lennon Miller potentially to come in.
Yeah, I think it's got to be a like for like with Hatate, as difficult as that will be to find a player that can do what Hatate can do. You need somebody creative, because a lot of Celtic's midfielders, and yes, Engels makes assists. He's got the second most assists in the Champions League behind somebody I seem to remember reading yesterday.
There's someone that watches this channel that has put that in a comment every day for the last 10 days.
I love that.
Who it is, but yeah.
You know, he's fighting the good fight in terms of keeping Engels' name in the conversation. But yeah, he's a creative player, but that's not primarily what I look at him as doing. I look at him as being a hard worker in the middle of the park alongside Bernardo, alongside McGregor. You need that wee bit of creative flair in there too. And I'm wondering if Lennon Miller could be that player down the line. I think he's still trying to find his best position, whether that's a 6, an 8 or a 10. I think he can play in all three roles. He's young and versatile, but over the next few years, I think you'll see him really tie down or nail down a position in his career and stick with it. Maybe if he's fluid, he can play in those positions as he goes along, if he's flexible. But I think that Celtic need to find somebody that is going to be the long-term replacement for Hatate, because I do see him leaving in the summer. As much as there was talk last summer, it just wasn't the right time for Hatate to go, and I don't think the move was there that he would have wanted. Leicester, it would have been a move down south, but I don't think it's the right fit for Hatate. He'd be firefighting most weeks in that midfield in a relegation battle. Let's be honest, Leicester really are in a relegation battle. So I don't think that move was there. I think the ideal one would have been Brighton for him. Matt O'Reilly got that move. Matoma's playing for Brighton. I know that Hatate and Matoma are really good friends off the pitch as well, and that would have been maybe a decent move for the player, but it wasn't there. And maybe even Hatate doesn't even go with their model either, because he's older. He's 26, going to be turning 27 soon. He's not a young player. He's young in terms of the amount of game time he's had over the past 3-4 years. He didn't really make his competitive debut until he was 21, 22, because he was doing the scholarship in Japan, going to university and then playing football, which is a good move for his personal life and for his adult life too, in terms of getting a degree before going in. I know a number of players have done that. Liam Scales, I think, has got a degree too before moving into football. But yes, he's a young player in terms of the game time, but in terms of age, he's 26, 27 now. He's probably entering that stage where if he doesn't move now, he won't get that big move in his career that he's maybe been looking for a couple of years.
No bigger move than Celtic, Ryan. I'm legally obliged to point that out, but I know what you mean. A move to a big league.
Yeah, unfortunately for players don't really see it as that as much as we like to talk about it as being the biggest move ever. Players will look at down south what players are doing, and there is a bit of an Asian influx into the English Premier League at the moment. You look at what Heung-min Son, even players before Heung-min Son, but now look at Hwang at Wolves. You look at Kamada at Crystal Palace, Okazaki back in the past as well. So there's loads more Asian players, whether that's Japanese, South Korean, etc. They're all making their way into the Premier League. And Hatate will see these players and be like, I want a bit of that too. But he's got to keep it going. It's his consistency levels that are probably consistency and injuries have been the things that have curtailed Hatate in his career. Because if he did show the levels that he was showing at the beginning, against Hearts, against Rangers, etc., he wouldn't have been at Celtic for long. Unfortunately, injuries and form have curtailed him, but that's not to say he can't get a big move I think that if that's the one position in midfield that could probably be changed due to a move, I think it would be Hatate.
I think he's starting to hit that top level. I think Hatate potentially now, and I'm talking maybe over the last 3 or 4 games, Leipzig, Aberdeen, etc. Those were probably his best performances he's had in a Celtic shirt. I thought Leipzig especially was Hatate's best performance. Yeah. So really encouraging regarding him. It's his birthday today as well, Reo Hatate. I saw Celtic posting about that earlier. T1 saying, yeah, he celebrated like he's enjoying his football. He really did celebrate that Leipzig goal. It's the happiest I've ever seen him. So I think he's really enjoying his football. He got some minutes with Japan during the break as well. So he's going to come back. And as I said yesterday, for me, he's in my team for Tynecastle on Saturday. I know Tony has a thing for Bernardo at the moment, which is fair enough. But I think Engels, Hatate and McGregor is still the best midfield we've got. Todd Amura, Brownhill's in his prime. He's a pre-contract. Selling value means nothing. And remember, we have been lucky with injuries. Yeah, we have actually. We've kind of been quite fortunate so far with injuries. We've not really had too many. Have we? I guess Carter Vickers would be the main one. Martin wondering, is Home injured? A couple of comments about Odin Home. I know that there was a bit of chat when he missed the team photo at the start of the season. I believe he was just not at Lennoxtown that day. I think he was maybe unwell or something like that. So no dramas there, but clearly Odin Thiago Home, who you quite like, Ryan, doesn't appear to be featured in too much. I mean, as much as Brendan Rodgers says every player is going to be used over this next period, I'm not so sure you'll see Home play at all, to be honest. I think he's got five good players ahead of him now.
Yeah, I think I like the idea of Home rather than the actual player, if I'm being perfectly honest. That makes
you like the Instagram posts of sit down.
Listen, if you're quoting Kendrick Lamar, then yeah, that's a great way to go right into my heart. Basically,
like his second game as well, wasn't it? Aberdeen away.
It was a good move from the player. I think it was Rubizic he was up against at Aberdeen. He actually had quite a good cameo in that game when he came on for, I believe it was Reo Hatate who came off injured. Memory. Yeah, Hatate played 20 minutes and he was absolutely immense. He really did lay down a marker and then was injured, and that's been a problem with Hatate's. He'll get into good form and then he'll be injured. It's good that now he's got a clear run of games now. Hopefully, fingers crossed, touch wood, etc., that he can keep fit for that amount of time. Yeah, I think with Home, I think the first thing that's got to be done in January is to get him a loan move and get him playing some football from now until the end of the season. Rodgers mentioned him actually in a press conference a couple of weeks ago, and he said there was something wrong with his calves or something, or he had a calf injury. And I was like, it's the first time Brendan Rodgers has mentioned him in weeks. I just thought he was out the team, and like I thought he was fully fit. But the fact that they actually brought up that there was an injury to the player makes you wonder why, or makes you realise why he wasn't in the team. I think he just needs a loan deal, to be honest, to go and play some football, whether that's back in Norway or down south somewhere, or even in the Scottish Premiership. I'm sure there'll be clubs that would be willing to take him. He has got talent. He just needs game time. But yeah, it's a bit of an odd one, to be honest. We've not really got too much to base it on. Not really got too much to base Odin Thiago Home on. We've had good wee cameos in games. I'm trying to think if he's actually started a game apart from the Bucky Thistle game.
Yeah, he did. Oh, I think he would have. Yeah,
it's against Motherwell or something like that. It was a home game that he started and he didn't really take his opportunity. I think
maybe Ross County.
I seem to remember that. It's a bit of an odd one. We don't have a lot to base it on. We don't have highlights or anything. It's been maybe 50, 60 minutes and he's not really done anything, and then he's out the team and then you don't see him for another couple of months. I think for the good of his career, what age is he? 21, 22 now? I think him maybe going away on loan, getting some game time, playing every week in, week out, would be the best thing for his career at this point.
Yeah, I don't think he's got much of a future, clearly, but I think we're absolutely fine. Clearly, we've got, as I say, as strong a midfield as I can remember at Celtic. Really good options, and I love the fact that any of the 5 players could start any game. And you'd be pretty confident and feeling good about them. Like, for example, Luke McCowan, who Yeah, it's probably slightly the outsider compared to the other four. If he was to start on Saturday at Tynecastle, I'd be for that. I think he'd be really suited to that game. So, yeah, it's really exciting times. Jason's saying, I think we need a winger and possibly another striker. Have you had to think about January and what you'd want? I'd certainly want at least one winger, potentially two wingers, potentially another forward, but I just don't know. I have a feeling the club and Brendan might be happy with Maida being the third choice. I guess if you had a better option on the left, no disrespect, Lewis Palmer, it would mean that you could have Maida as that third option, because if Maida did have to go up front, you could then have someone on the left. I think I'd be looking at two wingers potentially, one left, one right, or one left and one who can play on either side. I think elsewhere, to be honest, I'm pretty happy with the state the squad's in.
Yeah, if you look at the left and the right, I'd say the position that's needing more reinforcements is the left, because at the right you've got Nicholas Kuhn. Now, fingers crossed he doesn't get any injuries, because he's been Celtic's best player this season. The player to come in to replace him would be James Forrest, who can do a job, but then would you be wanting him to start loads of games? I quite like the position that he's in at the moment, where he can come off the bench and really make a sustained impact for 20 minutes, half an hour, maybe even when games are over. That feels like a bit of a disrespect towards James Forrest, but that's where he is in his career. At the moment, he's a 33-year-old winger. He can only do so much. He did really well last season in the game, particularly against Dundee. I watched that game yesterday. I watched the highlights of that yesterday for some weird reason, and he was absolutely brilliant in that game at Dens Park towards the end of the season in April. And that really shows what he can do. Yes, he doesn't have the pace that he once had, but he's still an intelligent footballer. He's had to change his game ever so slightly, time his runs a bit better, pick and choose when he runs and when he stays back. But I think that's made him a better player for it, and he's a more intelligent footballer, and he's a player that you know that you can rely on if he's coming off the bench. I would want a player on the left-hand side. It remains to be seen what Palmer's long-term future is at Celtic. Will he get a move in January away from the club? He seems pretty adamant to come back to Celtic, into the team, and try and make an impact. I thought his big chance came a couple of weeks ago in that home game against Dundee, and he didn't take it.
He struggled.
He struggled, and so did Yang, to be honest. But then he did quite well against Leipzig when he came on, showed a wee bit of life in him. But I just feel as if there'll be more in that player that Celtic nearly got in the summer, Balikwisha. Now I know that he's been out injured quite long term actually with Royal Antwerp, so I wonder if they'll be watching his fitness, because he didn't really go for anybody. I know they went for Bogic, who can play in attacking midfield, but he also plays a false nine and as a left winger too. But Balikwisha, there was a lot of links with him for a few weeks, and then
so did he get an injury?
That was the reason why he never signed for Celtic, or the reason why negotiations sort of halted. It's because he got an injury that kept him out for 3-4 months. I believe I've been checking his transfer market page, and he's only played one game this season. So that might be even a player that Celtic look at in the summer. Give him from January until the summer to prove his fitness, to show that he's back in that form, and then maybe go in for him. But I think there needs to be two players from every position vying for positions, because I think that's what's really helped in the centre-back position. You look at the competition that Austin Trusty's brought in. Scales was doing really well to stay in the team for so long. Austin Trusty's came in, and the team has improved because of it. I want the same thing to happen in other positions around the field. It's happening in midfield. You look at all the players that are available at Rodgers' disposal that can come in if a player isn't playing so well. I want to see that in the wing position. Palmer isn't really supplying any competition to Dai's Maeda at the moment. Maeda's always better, I think, when you've got competition. It's the same for the right-hand side too. Competition breeds success, and if you can get two players for every position, then you'll be doing quite well.
Yeah, I think the squad's in really good, in a really good place at the moment. But you're always looking to push forward, and the cash is certainly in the bank for the club to do that. I mean, you look at January there, and the fact we managed to get Nicholas Kuhn in. And he took his time to kind of get up to speed, but there's no doubting that's turned out to be a fabulous signing. So imagine you could get a signing like Nicholas Kuhn this January and add to what we've already got, would be laughing. Because for me, the wings are the only kind of complaint from the summer, the fact that we didn't manage to sign another winger. So one to keep an eye on. Christmas, this is a total change in direction, but the Christmas ad is out today, Ryan. I saw Celtic posting about this yesterday. So apparently it's 10 years of the Christmas movies that they've done. Are you checking your phone to see if it's already out?
Sorry, I was getting a phone call there. Sorry.
They usually put it out about this time. But apparently it's 10 years they've been doing the Christmas ad. Have you got a highlight of any Christmas ad? Do you remember like the 2019 one where it was like a musical or some sort of kind of kids panto, probably, given it was that time of year. And we had like, I think Jeremy Frimpong was dressed as a star and various different things going on. And there was one where Brendan Rodgers was Brendan Rodgers a pilot or something like that in one of them as well. Sorry, I realise I've gone way off topic here, but that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I think the highlight for me was I like it when they don't take themselves too seriously. There's a couple of highlights for me. First being Jota being George Michael was absolutely brilliant. Him and Greg Taylor making up the members of Wham was absolutely brilliant. I think Jota really took that in his stride, and it was great to see. I also think that last year's highlight right at the end of the advert when Brendan Rodgers was blowing off the dust of somebody was blowing off the dust of his autobiography. I thought that was absolutely hilarious, and I really like when they poke fun at themselves, but in a good way.
Aware Celtic, wasn't it? And it's unusual for the club to be like that, so that was good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that it's quite funny that because they were selling the autobiography for like £1 in the Celtic store up until he came back. And then they put the price up to about £10 again, I remember. Because I remember being in the Celtic store once and it was there and it was £1. I'm like, who's going to buy that? Why would somebody buy something of Brendan Rodgers, given the feeling towards the man at the time? Now, there probably needs to be an extra couple of chapters and a revised version of the book coming out. I think that's probably a good way for Celtic to make money as well. If Brendan Rodgers is front and centre of this Christmas advert, then I think it'll be a success, given how popular he is with the fans once again. That's what my hope is. Do you know when it's coming out roughly, Hamish? Has there been a set time? Yeah, the Christmas
today.
Yeah, I know, but is there a set time? I know it's coming out today.
It's usually morning, isn't it? So it'll probably be out at some stage soon. It'll be interesting to see what they've got lined up this year.
Yeah, it's all. I like it when they make fun of themselves. There's been quite a few moments. Jeremy Frimpong is the wee Christmas star as well. I think that was in 2018, 2019. I think Ryan Christie was one of the Christmas stars too. Some of them have been better than others. The heartfelt ones are nice, but I like the ones personally. For me, I like it when they make fun of themselves in the best possible way, because it shows that they've got a sense of humour as well, and they're not just football players, but they're individuals as well.
Yeah. Definitely. We've got AGM tomorrow as well, so this will be the final video before the AGM. It's kind of, there's usually some sort of axe to grind. The supporter usually there's something we can be kind of unhappy about, but there doesn't seem to be much at the moment at the club. I guess there'll be the odd wee thing, various things. I mean, I think the fan survey will probably come into things, won't it? So it'll be interesting to see what goes down.
Yeah, it's always interesting, and it's a good sort of way to round everything up and see what things are happening. I think Brendan Rodgers will be doing the press conference after it. It's usually the one day or the one press conference where you see the manager, whether that's Brendan Rodgers, Ange Postecoglou, in their full suit doing the press conference, apart from their unveiling as Celtic manager or a cup final. So you can always differentiate the press conferences by the fact that that they're wearing a suit because of the AGM. I think it'll be a much happier one than last season, because I think there was a bit of discontent given the way that the summer transfer window went last summer. Now, the fact that Celtic are in a really good place, both domestically, with the way the league table is, apart from Aberdeen being level on points, obviously. Hopefully Celtic can remedy that in the next few weeks. But also the Champions League, getting 7 points from the first 4 games. The club's in a really good spot at the moment, and I think that'll be reflected in the AGM. There might be some negatives that come out of it, but there's nothing that immediately spring to mind, which goes to show how good a position the club are in at the moment. There seems to be a bit of unity, a bit of happiness. I think there's a couple more contracts that need to be sorted out, one for the manager, one for specific players. But yeah, apart from that, I think everybody's in a pretty good place. I don't know how much we can read into it, Hamish, but there was a sort of leak, not a leak, but a sort of, well, it was kind of a leak that was doing the rounds yesterday of a Q&A that Brendan Rodgers had with the Celtic support. I don't know where exactly it was, and I don't know how much you can read into that, but there was talks about Alistair Johnson and the fact that there's transfers in the pipeline as well. I don't know how much. I would take everything that you read on WhatsApp with a supreme pinch of salt, but it seemed to be pretty good news coming on that front.
So we're still waiting to hear if Alistair Johnson is new contract. Obviously, the stuff about Greg Taylor continues to go on. So yeah, I mean, there's certainly plenty happening at the club over the next few days, and obviously gearing up for Saturday as well. We're only a couple of days now away, as you say. We'll probably have the press conference tomorrow. Brendan Rodgers after the AGM speaking a few kind of various things. I mean, injury update would be good on how's Adam Ida getting on. I guess just finding out all our international players have come through all right, and finding out what shape the squad is on for the game on Saturday. But it pretty much should be a clean bill of health for everyone at Tynecastle, and hopefully we can just really kick on and start this period with a big victory.
Yeah, regardless of the way that Hearts have been playing recently in the table, would suggest that they're one of the worst teams in the league. I don't think they've got one of the worst squads in the league. It's just down to form, really bad form. I actually thought at the beginning of the season that they would do quite well this campaign due to their draw against Rangers in the opening day, where they really took it to Rangers, and I thought on another day they could have won that game. Both teams could have won that game, to be honest with you, but a draw was probably the right result, and that immediately set the tone, I would say, for the season. The fact that Rangers dropped points so early on, Celtic could then go and get the 3 points, Aberdeen get their 3 points, and that's the way it's been ever since, to be honest. But I think that Hearts are better than what they've shown already this season. I think they've got their new manager seems to have steadied the ship ever so slightly without really getting amazing results. I don't think there's
certainly
as much...
better, aren't they? They're certainly better. I don't think they're a great watch. I've watched 2 of their games. I watched the Edinburgh Derby, terrible game, and I watched their home game against Heidenheim, and I thought Heidenheim beat them pretty comfortably that night. They had a couple of chances, Hearts, but they never looked like a team going to get a result in that game. So they're definitely... I don't think they're a particularly great team to watch, but I think it's anyone thinking we're just going to turn up and batter them on Saturday night. I think that would be misguided. I mean, I could be wrong because this is a hell of a Celtic team, and to be honest, I wouldn't be massively surprised if we did go out and get an early goal and it was really easy. But I do think, just with it being Saturday night under the lights, first game back, and we may just be a little bit off it potentially. I think it could be a real battle to get a win on Saturday and send us into that next game.
Yeah, I think it's always a battle at Tynecastle, to be honest with you. That's what you expect going to that stadium. The fans are right up against the players. The distance between fans and players, we've seen it in the past. It's so close together.
Yeah.
And it makes for a really good atmosphere, a really hostile atmosphere. Looking forward to being a part of that and really sampling that, especially on a Saturday night. It's going to be even rowdier than usual. Edinburgh on a Saturday, you have the Celtic fans will be in good voice. There's not as many Celtic fans as what I would like at the ground. Hopefully that's something that can be sorted in the mid to long term future. But right now they've just got to work with that and make as much noise as possible. The best way for the Celtic fans to make noise is if the players are doing well on the park, because then you'll start hearing them off the park. You'll hear the fans off the park, and you won't hear the Hearts fans. So Hearts fans, they're a loud bunch, especially if their team are playing well, and they'll be looking for something to cling on to this season. They always up their game against Celtic, or it certainly feels like that. Last time Celtic were at Tynecastle, they were doing really well, and then they get a man sent off, Yang, for that contentious decision, which was a really terribly officiated.
It seems so long ago, though. How long ago does that seem? I think that was
Celtic.
March. I think that was like the 1st of March or something from memory.
And it's quite crazy to say this, Hamish, but I think Celtic won the league that day, and it's crazy to even suggest that. But there seemed to be a siege mentality after that game. Brendan Rodgers was really in control.
It's a big day.
It was a... They
didn't
really look back.
John Beaton, didn't he?
Yeah. I think we were all well, Tony and I were at the press conference, and immediately when he started talking, you were like, "This is going to be this is going to be quite box office." Box office. Brendan has returned at the right moment, but it was a galvanizer because I feel like it was such a big moment. He really did rally the troops after that game in terms of his players and the supporters as well, because everybody was just on the one boat from that point until the end of the season. Don't think they dropped another point, did they? Apart from Rangers away from home. So
well,
it was Rangers that dropped points, so the pressure was on them.
Early March, that game, and we've only dropped 4 points in the league since then. It's been a remarkable, and those two games you would say we should have won them both. 2-0 up at Ibrox, 2-0 up at home to Aberdeen. You could have been looking at, I don't know what that would have been, probably like 25 league wins in a row had that not happened. I mean, I agree. I mean, it was a really tough game. That, because remember, we'd just beaten Dundee a few days prior, and the confidence had been brought back. Best performance of the season, and then Rangers lost to Motherwell, home to Motherwell the day before, and everyone's thinking this is our time to strike and beat Hearts. And we had a penalty early in that game, didn't we? Adamida missed it, and then Yang gets sent off, and we just really had no chance that day because Hearts were a good team. Back then, I would say they were third best team in Scotland. We had 10 men. They had all the home support. It was just one of those days. So I know we've obviously beaten them since then, but I've beaten them a few times since then. But definitely going back there on Saturday night, I think it's an opportunity to go and win and put things right.
Absolutely. I don't know if revenge would be the word that's on the cards because it's a new season. But they'll probably be looking at last season and thinking, right, that was a bit of a nightmare, that game. It's time to make amends, even though it's a fresh season. Hearts are not. I don't think they're going to challenge for third. I think they will be a bit of a force in the years to come, especially with the analytics that they're getting from Tony Bloom and Brighton. It remains to be seen. Analytics can only do so much. You've got to actually then bring the players onto the park. I think it only accounts for about 50% of football analytics because you've still got to get the right fit of players. Brighton have got a really good track record of bringing in youngsters, but then again, they're still signing players from Celtic for 25 million. So it goes to show that there's alternative routes to buying players and scouting players, and Celtic are doing that really well at this moment in time. So the analytics can't help them at this point. I'd say that's the feel-good factor for them off the pitch, the fact that they've got that coming through. The analytics have still got the same players that they signed in the summer, and it's been really disappointing for them this season. I want Celtic to really compound the misery for Hearts. If they go out and play their game and play the football that we know that they can play, yes, there's always that worry about the post-international sort of hangover or the lack of cohesion in the team. But I think if Celtic play their game, then there's only going to be one winner on Saturday night. They can control the controllables, control the atmosphere, control the narrative, then I think they'll be absolutely fine at Tynecastle. But I think the one most important thing is they can't get sucked into the atmosphere, because it can be a quite intimidating place to go to, especially if you're not playing at your best. They can control that by playing well and really getting the fans against them, or the home fans against their own side. Because as much as it's intimidating, I think it can be intimidating for the home side as well, particularly if they don't play well. The fans will be expecting a fight against Celtic. It's up to Celtic to put that out and really cause the fans to turn against their own team, which can be possible because I don't think they're very happy with the way the season's going at the moment. You could say the same for both Edinburgh sides. It's been quite a shock in that regard that both of those sides are sitting bottom and second bottom respectively. I think it shows just how poor their seasons have been thus far.
Yeah, they've been terrible. So hopefully that continues on Saturday night. Okay, we'll head off for now. We will return tomorrow when we can properly preview the game. I believe Tony will be back at that stage as well. Thanks everyone for your support. Much appreciated you always tuning in, watching these videos, commenting. Even those of you who don't comment, we really do appreciate it. If you've not managed to subscribe to the channel yet, you've got an opportunity to put that right. It costs you absolutely nothing and means that we can grow the channel, find more people, and also you can have alerts when we go live as well, so you don't miss any of the show. Okay, thanks everyone. We'll catch up with you this time tomorrow. Speak to you then.